Hello, Molly Chang here, your host for the Say It Skillfully podcast, where I talk with leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, elite athletes, artists, and professionals like you who open up about what's been hard, defining moments and learnings in finding their true north and succeeding on their terms. My guest today is an inspiring example of creating light where there was darkness. In 2023, he was battling mental struggles of intense anxiety and negativity. Rather than stay inward, he took a bold step to post a daily gratitude video on social media, hardly the norm for this college administrator. And well, would you know, these daily posts to help himself serve to help millions of others, as 17 of his videos each have had over 1 million views on TikTok and Instagram. So my bold move was doing a cold call to ask if my guest would be willing to share his journey, and I am grateful he accepted. So please welcome an unexpected social media sensation, my new friend, David Lorimer. David, welcome to Say It Skillfully.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here, Molly.
Yeah, it's so thrilling because, like me, you're not exactly wired necessarily to be so public. But so I have to just ask, in your wildest dreams, coming from some tough times last year, would you have envisioned creating Today I Am Grateful as a channel and nurturing positivity and gratitude for people all over the planet?
No, never in my wildest dreams. My goal was to get me back on track and retrain my brain. And I did the social media thing because it actually gave me a lot of accountability to like being consistent for myself personally. So I thought there might be a small community that would maybe connect with that, but never the type of rapid growth and the emotional connection worldwide that has resulted as part of this.
Yeah, I love that this just kind of out of pure good intention has created something like who knows where it's going to go. So we're going to get to that because it's just the whole thing is fascinating to me. I would love, as I do with my guests, for listeners around the world just to get to know you, David, as a human being, and not to dramatize or otherwise sensationalize, but growing up, what were you like as a kid? Where'd you grow up? Just share with us a little bit about your history.
Sure. So I grew up in Iowa and grandparents are farmers. I um, was homeschooled, and that was a lot of fun. I'm one of five. I am the middle child, so all of the fun things that come along with all of that. But no, it was really great. I've got wonderful parents, wonderful upbringing, and I mean, I would say I grew up very happy. And then we moved to Kentucky, um, I guess just before my teenage years. And so both states are kind of home to me.
Nice. So I had, when I went to IBM school, I had a roommate and she was from Iowa. And my limited experience of folks in Iowa was pretty much the most down to earth people I could find anywhere on the planet. So you sort of ooze that there's a humility, a groundedness that is just that. Were you surrounded by that? I mean, were there arrogant people around you when you grew up?
I'm sure there were some, but yeah, for the most part, it was just very down to earth people um, in a positive community and learning and hanging out. And I would say that my siblings tease me that I was probably the most social in terms of like I was the kid that would go to the park and like declare that I had a new friend now because I met this kid at the playground, That was me.
So say a little bit more about the family dynamics because I really think it's so fun when people have 5 kids or 6 or 7. You can feel the whole sports team like with just your family. So I
Right.
just
Yeah.
curious on the kid dynamics. Are you super close in age or further apart?
We're pretty evenly spaced for the most part. So it's four boys and one girl, and my sister was the oldest.
Mm.
So a little bit of second mom vibe maybe going on there. But I didn't mind that too much because she really liked to bake and she especially liked to bake desserts and she just enjoyed the baking. And so she wanted somebody else to eat them so that she could bake something else. And so I was happy to serve in that sacrificial role.
Team player. Sporting family?
No, just not really like competitive, just for fun here and there. We loved Legos, and one of the advantages of having multiple children in a family is that then your Lego collection can be a lot bigger.
Oh, nice. That's great. Now, I know you're a college administrator. Were you academic studious kid?
Yes. I don't know that I knew that necessarily. So I, I I come from kind of a high achieving family, like high goals, pursue things, get things done. Like that's kind of the background. And then I was homeschooled, so I wasn't really didn't necessarily view myself as like the academic person, but academics have always been important, um, and something that has been well pursued. I wouldn't say that it was always easy, but it was always something that I was determined to pursue and achieve.
So the homeschooling, and I don't have experience with that. Say a bit more. What was behind your parents thinking for the homeschooling?
They felt that it was very important to them to control not only the academic education, but also the social environment and like worldview and all of the things that go into shaping a whole person. And so, I mean, long before I ever came along, that was like the direction that they had planned to go. And I absolutely loved it. We actually had a cool arrangement where we were dual enrolled with the public school system. So we did most of our education at home, but we could also participate in field trips and standardized testing and like all the things through the public school system. And so it was kind of the best of both worlds with everything. Like if I wanted to join sports team, I could have. That's just I've never been like the sportsy kid.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a really great environment and I loved it.
That's awesome. Was that through all through high school too?
Yep, all the way through.
And so this is really fascinating because you just had such this integration, no sense of like didn't fit in or anything like that. Just like super organic. It all worked out.
Yeah, I would say for the most part. I mean, we fought like siblings, but I wouldn't say that I ever felt like I didn't fit in or that we weren't a close unit.
That's fabulous. Okay, so where did the Kentucky thing happen? Is that after
My
you?
dad took a job.
Yeah.
So yes, we moved from Iowa to Kentucky. I think I was right about 10 years old, and he took a new job out here. And so then we moved the Kentucky direction, which was a major change. If you're familiar with both Iowa and Kentucky, one is flat and the other not. And but I love both places, and now I just love everywhere I'm going. I love flatland, I love hills, I love mountains, I love exploring, I love going to new places, and I feel like every place I go, like after I've been there a little bit, I just have this like, I could live here.
I love that. I love your ability to be a chameleon and just really embrace what's around you. So, academically, your siblings lead the way with college or what have you. I'm curious how that whole
Yes,
happened.
absolutely. All five of us pursued college, and so I was just kind of in that flow and graduated my undergraduate, and just kind of trying to figure out life
Mhm.
and what direction you want to go and all of that. And it was actually several years after my undergraduate graduation before I really started recognizing um, that I was probably going to be in management. And so then I began pursuing a master's in business administration.
So this is this middle child. I don't, and I haven't read the birth order, but there's something about kind of getting along with absolutely everyone.
Yeah,
So say a bit about because this,
that's me.
yeah, this communication skill thing probably was pretty early on, I'm guessing.
Yes, I am your stereotypical middle child, the peacemaker, the get along, the like, okay, I'm not going to push what I'm after. We'll just go with that and, kind of keep the peace, keep everybody happy, like all of that kind of thing. And my mom is a very people oriented person. And so, like, a lot of the skills that people compliment me on, really, I didn't have anything to do with developing. Like, it was 100% my upbringing. A lot of it is my mom. My dad is the other side. It's just like that was just it was just there. And so I feel very blessed to have like very easily I can just look at a lot of skill sets and be like, this was just part of my upbringing. It was not something that I learned later. It was just kind of built in. I had to learn a lot of the later skills and management and administration and like doing hard things and saying important things when they need to be said. But yeah, a lot of just the natural connection with people was pretty natural to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So were your older siblings mentors in any way as you were shaping? Or you watching them doing, going, I want to do that or I don't want to do that?
I wouldn't say necessarily like specifically that. There's always the just you have siblings mentoring in that they pick on you and tease you, and you kind of have to develop a little bit of who you are through that context. But um, I mean, I'm sure I watched them make mistakes and learned from those mistakes, like um, be respectful to parents or you'll get in trouble, all of that kind of thing. But otherwise, I don't know that there was anything particularly that I would look at that and be like, yeah, well, there's some specific mentoring from them.
Yeah. So do you recall, I mean, it sounds like you're kind of like happy-go-lucky skating through. Was there anything in college particularly hard? I mean, any defining moments?
In college itself, um, I was pretty goal focused, very academic focused in college. Also enjoyed having a social life. One of the things mom had told me was that it was more important to enjoy my time in college than it was to just plow through and finish quickly. So I stretched 4 years of college into five, but I enjoyed my time. I traveled in a music group during part of that time and had a great time. I enjoyed hiking and doing things with friends. And honestly, if I had that to do again, I would probably spend more time investing in those relationships with my friends and a little bit less on the academics because I didn't know how good I had it. You just don't have those kinds of relationships later.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. So you're in a band. Were you playing an instrument, singing? What were you?
I was in a vocal group, so I was a singer. Yeah.
You're a singer. Oh, nice. Look at you. It's coming
And
full circle.
traveled and met people and socialized. And yeah, there's sort of a trend there.
I love it. Okay, so you come out of school, you're like, hey, I think I'm going to be leader of people. So talk to us because this is a big thing for kids coming out of school. How did you navigate, like literally where to work, getting a job?
So I was the classic working in the field that I was working to pay my way through college and not as directly my major. So actually, after my undergraduate, I did not work with people. I have always enjoyed working with computers and information technology, and there was a job available in that field. And so I took that right after graduation and worked in computers all summer. I was mostly doing hardware management and software installs, stuff like that. And I did that for 3 months. And overall, I loved it and I did not enjoy my life. And somewhere in there was a real defining moment for me that even though I enjoy computers, it does not bring fulfillment. And thinking back on the other things that I had done through college, I was like, I want my life to be obviously invested in people. So I switched jobs that fall into a recruiting and enrollment position, which was very people oriented. And I have been in jobs that have been people oriented ever since. And I love it.
So this is a pretty gigantic epiphany for, so it seems like a relatively young person, like fulfillment. They're like, what is that? And I just got
Yep.
off a call with my dear friend Paul Corona because he just really specializes because so many folks, quote unquote, chase success, right? The thing,
Mhm.
the trophy, the accomplishment, that idea of it being fulfilling and meaningful, which is something you define that's lost on a lot of people. I mean, was that, were other kids, your friends getting that, or was that sort of like David just got that?
I think mostly I just got it. And I don't know if I would have in another context, but my job was me. And I'm introverted. I don't mind being alone. And I love working with computers. So like it was like me and 12 computers for the most of the summer in various phases and so on. And that was fine, but it was I was very, very clear to me that something was missing in my life. And that though I was having fun, I had to rationalize that in my head. Like, why am I enjoying this and also not enjoying life at the same time? So I think I sort of forced me into that thought pattern of like, wait a minute, what's missing? And it's fulfillment was actually what was missing. Um, so yeah, I don't remember there being anybody talking with me about it. It just kind of hit me as I was wrestling with this like this, don't like this tension inside myself.
I love that because the struggles are where we are most defining, where we find our fulfillment, and good for you to do that. So then talk about how you pursued these people-oriented jobs.
Um, I believe, I can't remember now exactly, but I think somebody had come to me and asked me because I had been in the traveling role when I was in college and they were aware of that. And so they had come and asked me about the position. And um, so I don't really remember all the details about it. I just know that then that was like, yeah, that's a people-oriented job. I'm going to move that direction and see what happens. And that was certainly the beginning of a very people-oriented career, the majority in recruiting and admissions, and then moving into leadership, department management, and so on.
So let's talk about this. Is a really nice leadership 101 training thing. So as you're coming along the ranks, David, what are some of the ahas that perhaps maybe when you're in an individual you didn't focus as much on? Because I do think that, some of this, becoming a great leader, just because you're great at a job, then you get promoted, doesn't really mean you're great at inspiring people and developing people. So I'd love to just understand a little bit about how you, just became good at it.
I'd say first off, listen to other people. I didn't know I was good at it. I did not clue in. It at the beginning. I mean, I went back and realized, wait, this was happening all the way through college. I was elected class president. I became assigned a leader of the music group at one point. And I think like in all of those, I just kind of perceived it as like, well, they just needed somebody, and I'm the guy that didn't say no. Like I kind of was working through that. And so um it was not, I mean, it was years after college graduation before I actually started like, I guess, admitting to myself that I might have some skill in that area.
Mhm.
Um I was just like, hey, wait, I keep ending up in leadership and management type positions. There might be a reason for that. Like okay, maybe I'm a little dense, but it took me a while to figure that out. Once I finally like came to grips with that, um, then I was like, I need to get more training in this area because I didn't have any formal training in management at that point. It was all just experiential.
Yeah, yeah, that's fabulous. So, fast forward. So, you have this thriving family. Say a little bit about meeting your wife and then, burgeoning clan that you have.
Sure, that's a whole story. I waited a number of years. It's fair to say that I'm fairly picky. I didn't date a lot in college, um, but I kind of had a pretty good idea of what I was looking for, and I was going to wait, and so I did. So we met. I don't remember exactly when we first met, but we had kind of started a light friendship, and we got to know each other across a period of about 5 years um, before we actually started formally dating, and that was great. And he's wonderful and very supportive. And let's see here. So the big story there is that we wanted to have a family and wanted to have at least a larger than normal number of children, we might say. And we'd been married for several years, and we're not having kids. And so we began that series of doctor's appointments to get questions answered and kind of working through all that. And had a significant period of time where we were struggling with infertility and navigating that as a couple. Um, that's a whole unique ball game.
Mhm.
And I appreciate her so much because I remember at one point we sat down together, and between the tears and the trying to come to grips with everything, um, I remember both of us saying, like, we are in this together. No matter what happens, we are in this together. And I feel like that was a defining moment for us in our relationship, that nobody's going anywhere. We're not asking questions. We're not blaming, but we are facing life together no matter what it brings. And long story short, a few years of working through all that, and we decided to pursue embryo adoption as a way of building our family. And so that has just been a beautiful solution for us. And we have 3 kids, and they are wonderful. And they keep us very busy. They're all boys, and they are very active and rambunctious, but we absolutely love them, and it's just wonderful.
So fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. How have you found balancing, you're rigorous at work and then the family? Has that been easy for you to prioritize? Not so easy.
Not easy. And that would be a great question to ask my wife. She would agree. Not easy. I'm a task-oriented person. I am a very, I would say, work responsible person. So I find that developing that work-life balance for me is very challenging. And it's not like, oh, I found that balance, but it's definitely a balance that I am working on every day, every week, trying to make sure that I'm giving my best at work and investing there, and then making a shift and giving my best at home. And that can be challenging because my head's working on work problems, and maybe not fully present all the time when I need to be. And so trying to have some very intentional change there with intentional shift. A work-life balance is really challenging. And for those that have found it and are doing a great job, kudos. I'm still working on doing that in a way that I'm happy with both sides.
Yeah, thank you for being very upfront about that. And I don't know that I've talked to anyone who is there on it. It's just a kind of every moment challenge. So, would you share maybe some of the things that make it most hard for you to shut off? And then what have you found does help? A little pro tip maybe would be, I'm sure our listeners would welcome that.
Sure. One of the most difficult things is my psyche. I am always working on problems. I'm the guy who wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, that's it. That's the solution to the thing I've been like worried about for the last week. It's like, that's me. Like, oh, my subconscious is working on these problems all the time. And I think that's a huge thing for me, is that part of my brain is still like back trying to problem solve and do all of that. Um, which can make it be difficult. Honestly, the easiest way to really make the switch and invest is for my phone to be nowhere around. Because from department head to now college administrator, I don't have a time that I really leave work. Um, I am responsible for things that happen after work hours. I have to have availability. I sometimes have to jump in and respond with those sorts of things. Um, and so just your phone goes ping, and my mind immediately is like, oh no, what problem has happened now that I've got to go deal with? And it doesn't matter. The message might just be some, friend who's just said hi, but my mind just left and is now back at work. And so trying to just have times where I leave the phone behind and spend time without that distraction is definitely a helpful thing.
Yeah, I love that. That is super. I wish I could do that. I have to admit that if I sometimes I'm literally like I feel naked without my phone. I mean, it's just the worst thing ever. Like it just is just like stuck to me. Uh, David, being a parent and being a leader at work, share some things perhaps that you learned about yourself as you became a parent to these three boys.
Wow. You learn so much about yourself becoming a parent. And I think it's very humbling because the majority of what you learn is not positive. um, I have less patience than I thought I did, and that's something that I've had to work through, and developing that. I think that idea of being able to really make a switch with adults, you can always ask an adult to understand. But with young children, you can't just ask them to understand. And so how it kind of like points out how often you're used to doing that. Um, and I would say that there's a lot that I learned about myself and that have needed to work on and improve and develop in different ways. And kids mimic you, and so sometimes you just get to see a little replay of who you are and how you act. Um, but I absolutely love being a parent, and I think that's another thing, that I learned about myself that's very positive. I've always enjoyed children and investing in them. When it's your own, there's just so much more in that connection and that bond. And I love doing things with my kids, and definitely wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I have the saying, kids don't get to pick their parents, and yours are very lucky to have the caring and the kindness and the interest in them that they do. Okay, so David, we have to get to this whole, and I don't want to take it to a dark place, but it sounds like in 2023 there was a little bit of a bump. So just take us through what was going on for you.
Sure. First off, I didn't see it coming, which for anyone else who's been in that situation or who's in that situation now, that may be normal. I'm not sure, but I did not see it coming. So my first clue was around Christmas of 2022. I was working through a professional business decision and just became, I don't know how to describe it. The right word is anxiety, but to me, it was a little bit more than that, like to the point that I had to just let the thing that I was working on go. I was like, this is a good opportunity, but I don't feel right about it. And at that point, I thought that it was some sort of intuition. And maybe it was, but within 3 months after that, I was dealing with irrational and intense anxiety, negativity. I'm naturally a positive person. I'm optimistic, and I had become critical and negative, but it's a little bit hard to describe because it wasn't depression. A lot of the symptoms would be similar to depression, but it wasn't really depression, but it was very similar in a lot of ways. But just kind of like almost like a compulsive, there was a compulsive element to the anxiety. So, for example, I think it was selling something on Facebook Marketplace, and I got somebody who's like making really dumb offers and just whatever. But every time they messaged, like I had to reply to their message. Like I could not rest. It was just like I had to. And at some point, I'm like saying to myself, like, David, what is wrong with you? Like, you don't owe this person anything in the whole world. Like, it's a random connection. You already know they're not going to buy. Like, why are you still replying to messages? I was like, but it didn't matter. I couldn't, my brain would not rest. And I was like, okay, something is wrong. And so that type of anxiety that then moves into like a controlling phase. And every time I thought or spoke, it was just like everything was negative. And I was not in a good place. I had lost a lot of what I would consider my natural skills, um, had kind of disappeared. My ability to make decisions well was gone, which as a department head is not a good thing. So I was luckily have a good team, and I actually met with one of my team leads. I'm less like, I'm going to run all of my ideas past you because I'm not sure that I can trust my own decision making right now. It was not a good place to be. So I'm like trying to function in work. I'm trying to function in my family, and knowing I'm not in a good place and not really sure how to get out of that place was where I was. It wasn't good.
That's brutal. How long a period was this?
I noticed it for sure for about 3 or 4 months. I think realistically, it was probably 6 months. And I just wasn't always clued into what was going on. I'd been under a lot of long-term stress. I think that was a kind of like a lot that brought me into it. And I guess I'll throw this in. I forgot, I haven't mentioned this to anybody uh, at this point, but I had made a New Year's resolution that I think was a very dangerous New Year's resolution. I did not know it. I had made a New Year's resolution that I wanted to use my free time to develop me as a person. And so I had launched into professional development books, I had done self help books, and I was like using all my time to grow me and develop me. And looking back, I think what I actually did was remove all the balance from my life. And so burning my free time in more stress and intensity and for a good purpose and reason, but I forgot recreation. I forgot relaxation. I forgot all of those things. Did I mention I'm a task-oriented person? Um, and I'm quite sure that that contributed to the crash that I had just a couple of months later in the year. Was actually my New Year's resolution. So if you make a bad New Year's resolution, give it up. Like
Give it
you can
up.
change your mind for better choices.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm really sorry for this period. And then, so did your wife come to you? What's going on for you? Did you go to her? I'm really curious how you navigate. And I love the fact that at work you were like, I don't know that I trust myself, dude. You are now, in line for all decisions. That's awesome.
Yeah. I knew something was wrong, and so I had communicated that to my wife. Um, she was probably a little bit frustrated anyway, because like, okay, so you've communicated it, but why aren't you doing something about it? But she's very gracious and just kind of helped keep things running. And it was actually like I knew something was wrong. She knew something was wrong. We didn't really know what it was. There was a lot going on, and she was very gracious through the entire thing. It was actually a friend of mine at work that kind of brought everything to this point of realization. They just swung by my office at one day and they was like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not." I'm like, "I know this. Is it that obvious?" Like, yeah, probably is. And he just took time. He sat down and it kind of became my person to walk through all these things. And he said, "I was worried about that." He's like, I I explained kind of where I was at. And he's like, "I was there about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it was looking similar." So he's like, "Let me tell you what I did, and then let's work through this." And so he was very, very important to kind of forcing me to just, I was pushing through. Like, I just got to keep doing, I'll keep working, it'll all get better. And be like, no, you need to take some specific steps in your life to address this. And so he had a list that he had worked on from when he had walked through this. And he's like, review all the items in this list because though we often know them, they're really easy to forget. Simple things was most of it. It's like, are you spending time outside getting sunlight? What is your diet like? What is your, hydration? All of these kinds of things, sleep. One of those was intentional gratitude, but kind of working through those, I realized that, yeah, even though not only could I do them and tell other people that this is what you should do, at least half of them I was scoring really poor marks on. I had stopped managing my own life well. So that was the beginning. That was the call out. Be like, okay, I have to make some changes.
Wow. Guardian angel swoops into your office.
Yeah,
You are a lucky guy. Wow. Okay, so how long is this rehab? And then talk to us about, oh, maybe I'll post on social media, which is like to me, like unbelievable.
yeah. So for anybody else who's in that spot right now, rehab is as long as it takes and is almost never short. And I think that was one of the things that I had to come to grips with. Perhaps one of the hardest things for me through that was I had to let a lot of things go. I was trying to juggle a lot of things. I was trying to manage a whole bunch of things at once. Um, and I had to go back through all the things I was doing and saying, what of these things can I simply let go of because I have to reduce just what I'm doing in my life. And that was hard because I like doing things. I'm the person who's like, if I've got 15 minutes of free time, I come up with a new project that'll take me 3 years to do. That's just me. I'm constantly adding things. And so being forced to like start slicing things off and
Mm.
say, you know what, that's a great thing, but I am going to postpone it like for the foreseeable future because I'm not in a good place in my life. So I think it was about 2 or 3 months of working through all that. Was that easy? No, I had to navigate some very, very difficult things. I was in some business processes that I could not just walk out of. I had to work them through, even though I was in no mental condition to be doing that or making savvy decisions. And one that I was in, I actually just I had to close at a loss because I was like, I can't deal with it anymore,
Mm.
and I just have to do this for my own health. And so moved through that. And the gratitude thing. is actually kind of where I started seeing the big change. So I had started a gratitude journal shortly after my friend had talked with me because I'd heard of that. I'd never done one before because I didn't need to, all that kind of stuff. Um, so I started a gratitude journal on paper and frankly was terribly inconsistent. It just was not working for me. And the whole idea of like, all the standard gratitude practice, write down three things you're grateful for, write down three of these things, like blah, 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 was seriously stressing me out. Like it was triggering my anxiety to try to be grateful for things. Like I was not in a good place. I couldn't come up with anything to be grateful for. Like I had lost all of that positivity. Like everything was negative. So then the whole idea of trying to come up with three things to be grateful for was just like driving this anxiety again to a new level. Some point I was like, hey, there's no rule that says it has to be three things. Like I will do one thing. That's all I can handle right now. I will pick one thing to be grateful for and repeat that thing to myself all day long. And that was where I started. And even that was not easy. Like some mornings I'm like spending 15 minutes to try to be like, what is one thing I can be grateful for today? And that sounds kind of dumb, but if you've ever been in that place, it's like your mind does not work right. And so just anything I could come up with, which is now like what's sort of my, thing I'm known for is that literally anything counts. It doesn't matter if it's silly. It doesn't matter if it's simple, like anything. Look around, pick an object, be like, am I grateful for that thing? Yes, I am. Okay. That's the thing to be grateful for because I was having such a difficult time. So that's what I started doing, but I was terribly inconsistent. And I had this thought of like, maybe if I started doing this as a video gratitude journal on social media, it would provide some accountability and I'd be more inclined to stick with it. And so that was the crazy idea. I started a TikTok and then an Instagram to do this gratitude journal for myself. I was right about the accountability part. That worked really well. And I was able to stick with that for some reason. And it worked well. I haven't missed a day since. And that really began my path to healing. Within 2 weeks of doing it consistently every day, I had started to see a change. And instead of my brain just processing negative information all of the time, I had gone for a jog, which though I had been exercising was just a time where like my brain would process tons of negative information, dealing with problems and all kinds of stuff. This time I went for a jog and like the whole time my brain was like, oh, there's a thing you could be grateful for. This is something you could be grateful for. This is something. And I was like, whoa, something's different. And that was very exciting. I made a video post about that event because that was something I was grateful for and was like, this is something I've definitely got to stick with because it has been so beneficial for my own mental health.
Wow. So amazing that, and it's crazy because you hear the data, it shows, blah, 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 you're grateful, it's all this positive, blah. It's so great to just, you're like, this really works.
Yeah.
So when were you starting to pay attention to other people that you were, resonating and potentially really helping other people?
Um, there wasn't a lot at the beginning, so I was stuck in the TikTok 200 view jail for a long time. And, there's the temptation to be like, oh man, I'm doing this, nobody's paying attention, whatever. But I just reminded myself, like, I wasn't doing this for other people. I didn't start this as to like to get big or anything like that. I was doing it because it was beneficial to me. And so I was like, you know what? If there's, again, it's the reframing, it's the perspective shift from the negative to the positive. Like, if there's 200 other people that are benefiting from this, wonderful. Like, it's helping me, and maybe it's helping a handful of other people as well. And it was that way for a long time. And then all of a sudden, one day, it just blew up and a post went viral. And I was completely shocked. And from there, the channel began to grow. And I started getting messages from other people saying how much they appreciated it, how beneficial it was for them, how they were using my videos to focus on things to be grateful for when they couldn't come up with things to be grateful for, which was a place I knew all too well. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, thousands of people all around the world that are in this exact same place that I'm just coming out of. And it was a very eye-opening realization for me.
Wow. Did you feel because you had grooved to have it, so one could arguably say you didn't need it anymore. So did it become something in service to others? I mean, what pulls you along to keep doing it?
That's a good question. The benefit to me has always been the primary driving thing. Like this really is beneficial. And though I don't technically need it anymore, um, I still need an intentional positive focus in my life. I deal with problems all the time in administration, and balancing that is very important. Um, but months and months in, starting to get these messages, I would say there has been a perspective shift where I think a lot more about serving other people. And this moves from just something I did for me to now something that will serve other people. What's interesting is if I get a little bit too far that direction, I feel like I disconnect from the people. Like trying to be social media, like really the reality is what connects. And there's so much of that, like I can't handle a whole big, self-help book. I can't handle a 60-minute thing on how to be positive. I can't even handle a 15-minute TED talk on why gratitude benefits your life because of this mental state I'm in. But I can handle 6 seconds of this guy on TikTok who says, "Today I'm grateful for this thing." And I have to kind of remind myself that there really is a place where that connects and is important.
Yeah, that's a real aha, and I would think a very continual grounding force to remember where we came from, right? So that
Absolutely.
and I really appreciate that this sort of came out of nowhere. Yeah, you had a bad, New Year's resolution, but I think your story is you just never know,
You never know.
you know, and you think you're right. How did you handle being in tough spots with your kids?
I don't know. You'd probably have to ask my wife. I don't remember a lot of details from that time period.
Yeah.
I remember sometimes like would sit down and just try to write it out on paper, type it up because I knew probably later I would not remember how I was in those moments. But a lot of what I was doing was just plowing through, which was definitely a skill that I had developed at some point in life was like stuff the emotions in a box, make things happen,
Right.
do what needs done, and I was doing that for months. And so, how did that work in interaction with my kids? I tried not to take out irrational negativity on them, but I'm almost positive that there was emotional distancing there that was not healthy. And I just wasn't noticing because I wasn't where I needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel a lot of self-compassion and the ability for you to just acknowledge that, hey, I wasn't where I would want to be, and I didn't even know where I was, and I just want to offer that for listeners. We often talk about compassion for others, but that really starts with just having compassion for ourselves. When we're not the way we want to be or how we want to be. David, do you have a particular appreciation moment of yourself when you think back about all this? Something you appreciate about yourself and slogging it out here and persevering and coming out, better for it?
That's a great question. Not something I've really thought about. Um, I think the one is being honest, and the other is being willing to do what it takes. Probably for me, going back and cutting off a whole bunch of things out of my life, that was hard for me, but it was absolutely what needed done. And so I'd say I'm proud of myself for being willing to do that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, we could go on and on. Let's take it to a wrap here and we'll have a little fun and rapid fire. So, if you weren't college administrator, what profession would you be in your next life?
Fighter pilot.
Fireman. Guys love to fly. That's awesome. Any nicknames you can share with us?
I don't really have nicknames, uh,
No.
for whatever reason.
Oh, all good. And then a favorite food or cuisine?
Mexican. I love
Mexican.
Mexican. It's always a go-to favorite.
Okay. How about we'll do two top takeaways. One, a top takeaway, you listening to yourself in your life. I'm curious what's coming to you.
A top takeaway, I think, is that you're don't pretend that you're not where you really are. Like being honest with yourself, even if you don't know the solution to that. But the beginning of this journey with being willing to admit, like, something's wrong. I'm not okay. I didn't know the solution, but that was the beginning. And I think the other takeaway that's really important is intentional gratitude works. It retrains your brain and it really does work. As silly as it can sound at the beginning, it works.
Yeah. Today I am grateful, folks. Now I'm following you because you show up on my feed. It is, 100%. It might be like, sometimes it's 5 or 6 seconds. I mean, it's nothing. And
Mhm.
you get this jolt and this burst. And I knew I was going to be seeing you, so I'm a little more smiley about it. But I can see how you're just helping millions around the planet because this little burst of sunshine, it's just always going to be welcome in our lives. David, last question. What was it like for you to share your journey with us today?
I'm always happy to share with people. As I mentioned earlier, my fulfillment in life comes from investing in other people. So the ability to share this journey, if it can help others, I'm very happy to do it. So this has been great. Thanks so much for having me on, Molly.
Yeah. David, you shine so brightly being you and such a terrific example to all our listeners around the world. I want to thank you for all you shared. I think you're a poster child for finding your authentic voice and learning how and when best to use it. It's life changing. It benefits your career, your relationships, and every single thing you do. So, my friend, I appreciate you and how you're part of the solution and helping us all to be safe, seen, and heard, and our true and our very best selves.
Thank you so much, Molly. I appreciate that and that encouragement.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch. And if there's any little way I can be helpful, not that you need it, I'm here for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, okay. So fantastic. Okay. My final thought for today, I'm going to credit Aristotle. Happiness depends on ourselves. And that is a wrap, folks. Thank you for joining us. Please be part of the solution and kindly share this show. Amplify David's voice. Reflect on your own top takeaways. And no, I'm cheering for you to be who you are and skillfully say what needs to be said so that you and all those around you have the shared reality that makes work and life much better.